The South African Zionist Federation hits hard at government's position on the flaring situation, criticizing it for being one-sided. In President Cyril Ramaphosa's weekly newsletter, he says that intractable conflicts can only be solved through peaceful negotiation. The SA Jewish Board of Directors says government has not condemned attacks coming from Gaza and Hamas.
Call on the South African government to condemn the 3,000 rockets fired at Israel since the start of hostilities, including the Hamas rockets that have killed Palestinian civilians. We further reject the hypocritical stance of the government in seeking to refer Israel to the International Criminal Court whilst refusing to arrest wanted genocide suspects within our borders.
We believe if our government holds a more balanced approach, they will have more effect in silencing the guns there, and we hope that the guns are silenced soon in that conflict and that peace talks can start again with the ultimate goal of a two-state solution where Palestinians have a viable Palestinian state and Israel has a Jewish state in secure borders.
Palestinian advocacy groups reject the notion that Palestine should be condemned. They say the real issue is that Israel continues to illegally occupy land and deny Palestinians the right to self-determine.
So when people say condemn both sides, it's like people used to say condemn both sides when we were struggling against apartheid. There's no such thing as condemning both sides. The one side was fighting for freedom and human rights, and the other side was an evil regime imposing its occupation powers on an oppressed people. So I do not believe there's two sides. I think there's one side that's essentially responsible for the violence that's ongoing and for the continuing destruction of Palestinian lives and livelihoods.
The voices of the street need to be translated into political and into state action. And to some degree, this has been the case. For example, the South African government currently, as we speak, does not have an ambassador sitting in Tel Aviv. We don't have an embassy in Tel Aviv. We have a mere administrative liaison office. And other such actions to curtail our relations with Israel, we feel, need to be taken not as a punitive measure, but as a measure to send a very clear message to the Israeli regime that what it is doing is unacceptable.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization has called on all parties in the conflict to allow for humanitarian assistance and healthcare services to work unaffected in the region.
The health of people, the health of citizens, this should be a central issue in everyone's concern. And I think the DG has clearly raised the issue that in the context of conflict, the health of civilians, their lives need to be protected, and the healthcare that's provided to them needs to be protected. And all attacks on healthcare need to cease immediately, and access to people, for people to appropriate health services needs to be guaranteed. So I think we will continue to work with all those who wish to work to support people in need and people whose health, physical and mental health, is affected by this devastating conflict.
There are growing calls from the international community for a ceasefire. On Monday, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says his country was going to great lengths to reach a ceasefire. Noma Polani, SABC News.